We see goods just showing up on our doorsteps faster and faster these days. But have you ever really stopped to think about the complex logistics behind it all? Like a giant chess game happening constantly. Today, we're actually going to dive deep into that. We're looking at two key methods in trucking logistics: drop and hook versus live load. Big impact on how things move. Yeah, our mission really is to unpack these concepts. We want to understand how they stack up for efficiency, especially now heading into 2025, and figure out why one seems to be pulling ahead. We've got some great expert insights to help us navigate this. Okay, let's get into it. So, first things first, let's define drop and hook. What are we actually talking about here? Okay, imagine a truck driver pulls into a distribution center. Instead of waiting around, they just unhitch the trailer they brought. Could be full, could be empty, it doesn't matter. And then bam, they immediately hook up to a different trailer, one that's already loaded, packed, and ready to go. Our sources had a great way of putting it. Like riding your bike to school, but instead of waiting for your lunch to be packed, someone just hands you one already made. You're off again, like instantly.
Right.
Now compare that to live load. This is probably, what most people picture. The driver backs the truck up to a loading dock, and then they wait. Simple as that. They just sit there while workers physically load or unload the trailer, maybe item by item. And that wait time, well, it can vary a lot. Could be maybe 30 minutes if they're lucky. Or it could stretch into a few hours, depending on how busy things are. You can just imagine how frustrating that must be for a driver. That's not just downtime, it's lost miles, lost income potential, right?
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating is how these seemingly small operational differences create such hugely different outcomes for efficiency overall. One approach is all about keeping things moving, keeping the driver utilized. The other, well, it inherently builds in these periods where everything just stops. And that friction, that stopping and starting, it sends ripples right through the entire supply chain. It's not just about one truck waiting.
Okay, so given those pretty stark operational differences, the big question is obvious. Which one is actually more efficient? Especially now in 2025's market. This is where it starts to get really interesting, I think.
Yeah, and most of the time, the clear winner on the efficiency front is drop and hook. The reasons are pretty compelling. First off, it's just faster. Much faster. A driver can swap trailers in maybe 15 to 30 minutes. Compare that to a live load potentially taking, 30 minutes on the very quick end, but often stretching to 2, 3 hours, sometimes even longer.
Wow, okay, so minutes versus potentially hours.
Exactly. And that quicker turnaround means drivers can fit more trips into their day, more deliveries, which translates directly to better earnings for them. That's huge. Plus, their schedules become way more predictable. Less guesswork, which is a massive help for the dispatchers, for the whole logistics planning side of things. And, less waiting around generally means happier drivers, better driver satisfaction. That's incredibly important right now with the driver shortages we keep hearing about.
Right, keeping experienced drivers happy and productive seems critical.
It is. And what's really pushing drop and hook forward, especially looking towards 2025, is technology. Modern systems use things like real-time tracking, even AI and IoT devices, to coordinate everything much more smoothly. It helps cut down idle time even further, makes the whole swap process seamless. And the overall impact, it's significant. There's a statistic that just a 1% increase in using drop and hook across the industry, well, it can have the same effect as adding something like 10,000 new drivers to the road.
10,000 drivers, just from a 1% shift, that's actually staggering. I hadn't quite grasped the scale of that potential impact.
It's a powerful number, isn't it? Really highlights how much inefficiency is baked into waiting time.
So it's not just about, making one driver's day better. It's about system-wide capacity.
Yeah.
Does it also help with things like reducing empty miles, making the whole network flow better?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just raw capacity. Better asset utilization is key. Trailers are moving or staged, ready to move, not just sitting idle. That means less fuel wasted idling, fewer trucks driving around empty, trying to get to their next load. And the data you get from these systems allows AI to do a much better job predicting demand and optimizing routes. It just makes the whole network more, well, fluid and responsive.
Okay, drop and hook sounds incredibly powerful, almost like the perfect solution for modern logistics. But things are rarely that simple in the real world, are they? Is it always the best choice? Are there situations where live load, the waiting method, actually makes more sense or is even necessary?
Yes, definitely. Live load isn't going away. It still plays a really vital role in certain situations. For example, maybe there just aren't any extra trailers available at that location for a swap. That happens. Or the facility itself might be tight on space. They might not physically have room to store extra loaded or empty trailers waiting for pickup.
Right, physical constraints. Makes sense.
Also, sometimes for shorter trips, short-haul runs, the cost of having an extra trailer tied up just for that quick swap might actually outweigh the time saved. So financially, live load can be cheaper in some cases. And crucially, think about the cargo itself. If you're hauling something fragile, or maybe temperature-sensitive goods or anything that needs special handling,
Ah, okay. You'd want direct oversight during loading and unloading.
exactly, you need eyes on it, careful handling. Direct supervision becomes essential to make sure the product isn't damaged. And then there's the scale of the operation. Smaller companies, smaller warehouses, they might not have the capital for the extra trailers or the yard management system needed for a really efficient drop and hook operation. So they often default to live loads because the upfront investment is just lower.
That paints a much more nuanced picture. So drop and hook is often more efficient, but live load definitely still has its necessary place. So stepping back a bit, how are these choices, the shift towards drop and hook where possible, impacting the wider logistics world? What are the ripple effects we're seeing as we look at the landscape in 2025?
Well, a huge driver is customer expectations. All of us, really. We expect things faster. We want more transparency, more efficiency. E-commerce has really fueled that demand.
We've definitely gotten used to quick shipping.
Haven't we just? And you see the big players, companies like Amazon, Walmart, they've heavily invested in sophisticated drop and hook systems. It's fundamental to how they optimize their massive supply chains. But it's not just the giants anymore. Even smaller shippers are getting smarter. They're doing things like creating trailer pools, basically sharing groups of trailers between companies and using digital tracking to streamline things, trying to get some of the same efficiencies.
Interesting. Collaboration to compete.
Precisely. And underlying all of this improvement, for both methods really, is technology. As we touched on, AI and IoT are genuinely transforming how yards and docks are managed. Think smarter scheduling, predicting arrival times more accurately, minimizing congestion, and again, cutting down those costly empty miles. Technology is the big accelerator here, making both processes better, but definitely amplifying the advantages of drop and hook.
Okay, so summing things up. It seems drop and hook offers really clear efficiency benefits in today's market. It's driven by, well, practical needs like the driver shortage, but also by our own demands as consumers for speed and reliability. But, crucially, we've also seen that live load isn't obsolete. It remains essential, sometimes even optimal, in specific contexts. Logistics, it seems, is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
That's right. And this whole discussion, it kind of raises an interesting point for you listening at home. How do these decisions made behind the scenes in warehouses and trucking yards directly shape your own experience? How do they affect the speed that package arrives at your door?
Yeah, that's a great takeaway thought. It makes you consider your own priorities, doesn't it? How much do you personally value that sheer speed, that sort of grab and go speed for your deliveries? Or, would you be willing to wait a bit longer if it meant, say, potentially lower shipping costs overall? Or maybe extra care being taken with certain types of products because they used a live load process? It's really quite fascinating when you pause to think about how these seemingly niche operational choices in the trucking world actually ripple out to affect global commerce and ultimately shape our own expectations as consumers. Something to definitely ponder.